are we
red.
all
The light's
working?
red.
Yeah,
Let's see if it's...
We are live.
Live.
So we have been playing with technical difficulties this morning because
Yeah.
Belinda got her fingers into the mess.
He had the volume up on the iPad so we could hear ourselves after we say what we're saying coming out of the iPad. I can't talk and hear myself. Nobody wants to listen to me, including me.
Well, we have you here. That's why we're listening.
Well, let's see how many people do.
All right, yes.
Or
So
about 5 or 6.
Can you hear us? Let's see. There's only me and someone else on right now. I don't know who. Probably the camera.
And well, maybe
It won't talk
and
back.
it won't talk back
It will
because
not
you
talk back.
banished it.
So, can you hear us? Oh, wait, there's a third person. Somebody just dropped. I think this really tall today.
Well, I'm sorry I guessed at your
My height.
stature in the chair.
I'm slouchy today. Okay, so can you hear us? That's what we need to know.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Talk amongst yourselves. Sue is here. Sue, can you hear us? Let us know because we were messing with the volume
We
controls.
were messing with the volume?
He did the sound check and had
right.
it all ready to go, except you could hear us through the iPad. So obviously not 100%.
Listen, I'm getting a new skill every
Yes.
week.
Okay, she can hear us.
Okay.
That feels dangerous.
Yay. All right. Do we have any announcements?
How did
Well,
last Sunday go, by the way?
that would be my question. That was you and I are like,
I know,
We were
that's-
on it this day.
that was my question was how
One
do
of us should
people-
feel bad about that probably, but it's probably a toss-up.
Well, you did talk about going to a bar, so you owe me a beer.
That was in confidence before.
That was not part of this banter.
Amy wasn't supposed to know.
Oh, no, she'll probably join us.
Ah, okay. No, my question was, for those of you who joined us in person worship, and for those of you who joined us online, what was the experience like?
Yeah.
What did it work? I know Sue was happy with her experience here, and she can expound on that if she wants. We did move the camera a little bit just so that we showed our new members. So it was an experiment. I think there are a couple of things that we just need to be cognizant of, especially as we're coming and going, that, the clumping of people needs to keep spread out.
We're very chatty.
We are very chatty, and I get that. It's been quite a while since folks have been back together, so you want to have that connection, but
And we had, and we had a lot going on. We had
We did.
communion going through, so that was the first time we had done communion. And we had new members, so we were greeting
Yep.
the new members. But I think it went pretty well. We had 40 people in person in
and
the
18
pews,
online. Yep.
and 18 online. So,
From the couch, it seemed pretty good.
oh no, Amy said I just missed it. Heard my name.
Ignore it.
It was fine.
Nothing
Don't
to see here.
But really the only part that didn't really bother me, but it was weird, was the things that we spoke instead of saying,
Right.
after various things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well, there
You
was
know,
a
it
little
is
bit
what
of
it is.
in person. It was a little of what are we doing? Are we saying that? Or are we singing that? Or which?
well, there was a
which
couple
way?
of them that it was like, well, we sang that one and then we said this one.
Right.
Yeah.
But
So a little more
overall, I thought it
continuity.
was successful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things, though, that we will be looking for as we move forward are some more volunteers to help us kind of wipe down the pews and the door handles and stuff.
The after.
Yeah, the
service.
after party, you know.
Oh. Well, it could be a party.
We really don't want to put this just on one or two people. We want to be able to share the load so it doesn't become burdensome. And
Yeah.
the more hands we have, the quicker it'll go. And
Yeah. Well, I know Kate did that. Thank you, Kate.
Kate did. Thank you very much, Kate.
Kind of all on her own last week, and
Yeah.
it didn't take very long. So, one person did one side, one person did another side.
Yeah, I think
third person
that's
does
really what we need.
The handles and
Yeah, door
worship
handles
area.
and different areas in the worship. One of the places we probably didn't do was the sacristy, which we should wipe down because there was a lot of people in there.
Yeah. Well, with communion and
Yep. Well, that and our technology.
Oh,
that's
volume.
where our hub of technology
Our technology is,
So
yeah.
those are some things that we just need to work on better, I think.
Yeah.
But I think all in all, it went well, and as I said,
And we'll be back again this Sunday.
We will be.
Even better this week.
Even better.
Yep.
So Diane said she was having some volume problems. If anybody else is having some volume problems, let us know.
Yes,
And we'll make
please
some
let us know.
adjustments. But
Because it's all Belinda's fault today.
it's not my fault. Okay, I heard the bells. It's time to. We'll just maybe we need
time to divert focus.
Refocus, I think.
refocus. And what are we focusing on this week?
So we are focusing on Matthew's third discourse, which is found in the 13th chapter of the Gospel of Matthew. And it's typically referred to as the parabolic discourse because
Is that a kind of an angle? Parabolic. Never mind.
it's an arc,
Depends on where you're sitting.
not
It's an
angle.
arc. It's an arc. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Gotcha.
Okay.
Got it.
You didn't want to be picked on, did you?
Not at all. It's one of those days.
It's a place where, a lot of people are coming to hear Jesus, and Jesus kind of goes sort of up a hill, or actually in this one, he goes out in the boat and he starts preaching or teaching from the boat, giving different parables that describe what the kingdom of heaven is. And I think, for me, one of the things that I really took hold of in seminary, it was not something that I really thought about before, the kingdom of heaven. What really is that? But one of the things I really grasped in seminary was that the kingdom of heaven is here and now. It's where we are living. It's ever-present God, ever-present Christ, ever-present Holy Spirit are with us everywhere. So that's really what I sucked in, it's not some starry expanse, it's not some pearly gate, it's not,
Wow, dream crusher. Thanks. No.
well,
So kingdom of heaven to you is right now.
is here right now, and it's how we share Christ with the world, and it's how we welcome Christ into our lives. It's how do we exhibit Christ? How do we showcase our love of God and our love of what everything God has given us? And that's by sharing it with everyone, sharing it in the world, where we are now, because wherever we end up when we leave this earthly place, all of our stuff is going to be taken care of. We're going to be in paradise with Christ by our side. Here, it's like,
You're stuck with us by your side. Sorry.
And that's another form of paradise.
well, and that's, it's
Some days.
it's one of the things that I always say. People are like, how you doing? I go, it's another day in paradise. And it became so much so that my son bought me a plaque that says that on, and
Nice.
other things. And it truly is. If you think about, I look at what I have right now, right here with you two. It's a
There's
great.
6 of us all together.
Well, I'm saying right here, right now, with you two, and then whoever else is out there in the world,
Our virtual people.
our virtual people. Who's virtual with us, by the way?
We've got Amy, Sue, Debbie, Diane,
Deb Horton.
Deb Loso.
Oh, Deb Loso.
Yeah,
Okay. Cool.
it's cool.
Yeah. So that's really what my joy is being able to be here with you, sharing what we know is the truth in our lives. Truth. The truth will set you free this weekend on Sunday.
Okay.
Ooh.
Oh, we're
We're already-
previewing.
Yeah,
we're
I already.
previewing.
I found that
We're
plug already.
thro-
Yay!
He was just like waiting to put that out there. Can you tell? Oy vey. Okay, so chapter 13.
So the first parable we have is the parable of the sower. And that's
Yes.
where the sower for us is those who spread the word. So and we've had discussion about this before. We've had them in sermons where the parable of the sower, you throw it on throws the seed kind of wherever and whenever it will go. So it goes on the path, it goes in the thorns, and it goes in good soil. It goes on the rocky ground. And what are those? So what are those different types of soil? It's kind of parable of the soils. What do those stand for? So the parable of the path. What does the path? What does that signify for us?
Well, Jesus explains it here.
Yeah, these are pretty tough because right afterwards it says, Jesus explains.
Really?
So it's like,
Which I prefer, because sometimes what if I'm getting the
Sometimes
wrong
I have-
What if I'm getting the wrong metaphor here? We'll get to that in a minute because he
21st
didn't
century
explain.
brain.
He didn't explain something that I still have problems with, but
Okay.
this one's explainable. So the path would be likening to the seed falling, shooting up quickly, and then
That's the
having no
parable
roots.
of the rocks.
With the rocks, the path.
No, the path is kind of where
Oh,
we
it
s-
gets stolen.
That's right.
Right. Sorry, I was jumping ahead to the rock. Sorry.
The sound, jumping
The
ahead.
path. Oh my gosh, I'm out.
So the path is really where we spread the word of good news, and what happens? Satan takes it right away.
Stolen.
Doesn't nobody gets it. So continue on.
Okay, so then the rocky soil, the seed falls down between the rocks, comes up, but is scorched because
'Cause-
there's no root, there's no depth.
No depth. Nothing to take hold.
And so that would be the person who's like joyful, receiving the word, but doesn't put in the effort or the time to really grow
Right.
any depth. And then so first trial, hot sun, scorched.
Yeah.
Yep.
No good.
So what's next?
Ask Russ, come on.
What's
What
next,
is it,
Russ?
thorns next?
The thorns.
Yeah, see, I remember.
You remembered, you got it, you're on it.
So what is the?
I'm trying to remember. Aren't thorns, you run into trouble and then you give up? Is that thorns?
Yeah, it kind of chokes you out.
Yeah.
Kind of smothers you.
WWEs you.
Yeah, you're willing to accept the word, but the things of everyday life kind of just weigh you down and don't allow you to embrace it and just
One of the things from the explanation, which I must have glossed over, like there's two parts in this chapter that were completely new to me today, but it was that it just wasn't fruitful, that they weren't going to be fruitful.
Right,
Like
that-
it was
that-
still growing, you were still growing with the thorns, but you just
You're
weren't
still
as
questioning that.
fruitful
You'd
as
be
you
like
could
the
have been.
apple tree that blossoms, but you never get any apples.
Yes, like that. So you're not furthering the kingdom. You're not.
right. You're just
Eh,
You're
getting
right
through-
along.
You're
a
right
ride
along.
Yeah,
You're
there
right
you
along.
go. A strap hanger, so to
Oh.
speak.
all right.
You
Okay.
like that?
It's an interesting visual. Sure.
It's a subway term.
Right.
Okay.
Right. I don't have a lot of use for subways here in the Ville, but
No, you didn't get the light rails coming through here.
no.
Okay.
Anyway.
So what's the last part of this parable? What
Good soil.
good soil, and what does good soil do for us?
Well, it feeds us. It allows us to grow and blossom and get fruit.
Right. And what's our fruit that we want to give?
It would be other people.
Well, to welcome other people in, but our good fruit that we want to share is the gospel or
Right.
the good news. So that's
I'm
really
gonna go with just love.
love too, you know.
To me, that's the core. You know, if you can share God's love for you with others, because then it's God's love for them as well. We just fix all the world's problems.
Done.
All you need is
Check.
love. I do
Check.
believe that's a song.
We are the world.
That's a different song. That's world hunger.
Huh.
We're just talking about love right now.
Okay. So
Anyway.
did your question that you struggle with apply to this parable, or does it apply
No.
to something else?
Keep going. It's later.
Okay.
It's
So
later.
the next parable is
And hurry up.
one that I know that I preached on, was the parable of the wheat and the weeds. You know, and it's similar to being on thorny ground, but you know, it's where the farmer plants his good seed, and you know, the crops are coming up, and then the workers go out to the field and see that someone has sown weeds inside the crop, and you know, the workers are like, hey, we're gonna pull up the weeds, and you know, and then the farmer is like, no, we can't do that, because if we do that, we could disturb the roots of the wheat. So how does that translate to us today?
Well, lucky
That's a
for
fine
us,
question.
Jesus explained this one too.
And there you have it.
Phew.
Phew. Someone came prepared today.
I just read it not too long ago, and this was part of my Bible school for this
Okay.
this past summer. Not
Yes.
the parable of the weeds, but the
So,
other ones.
so what does Jesus explain to us?
So he is saying that it was the Son of Man, so it was him that was sowing this good seed, and the evil one, or I'm just going to go with the evil one, went in behind and planted these weeds.
Right.
And when it's time for the harvest, they're going to come through, pull the weeds first, throw them in the fire. And in Jesus' explanation, that was the angels harvesting.
Final judgment.
And yes, final judgment. And harvesting those weeds, or those who caused sin and did evil was my translation. I don't know
Right.
what your translation said.
So some of the things that I have struggled with, especially in these two parables, is that, you know, okay, we come in and we throw away the weeds. To me, the weeds are really where we need to be ministering. The weeds are really where we need to share God's love.
But it's not really our job to throw away the weeds.
And I'm not saying to throw
Right.
away. I'm saying to,
We're not
you know,
Right.
judging. We're just
We should reach out to the weeds.
we're
That's
just
exactly
tending.
right.
We're finding other use for the weeds.
that's right.
Right.
You know,
Dandelion tea, etc.
I've never had that.
Oh, well, it's cleansing. Carry on.
So I mean, that's really, you know, I think Luther put it in one of his sermons, I think, on this parable, that, you know, yes, it's not for us to be there to decide who's the wheat and the weeds. We're there to minister to everybody, and you know, at some point, you know, when we're called, you know, to the final judgment, then that's when Jesus, who has been appointed judge over all, will take care of whatever needs to be taken care of. But I think, you know, much like in the parable of the sower, it doesn't matter what ground we spread it on. I think we spread it on all the ground. You know, we spread it wherever we can. And then, you know, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, well, then we try again. And we find, you know, the seed to put out there, and we give it to people, and we just continue to do that and not get frustrated that, yes, it might spring up and you might get someone that's, you know, here for a short period of time, but at what
And then
point
gone.
do you know that that person doesn't, you know, take root and then is here for a long time?
Well, if you look at, and I don't know, this has sort of changed, but in the past, it used to be kids that grew up in the church, they'd get confirmed, they'd leave for college, and you would not see them again until they had a kid, and then they would come back, and then a lot of them would be involved in the church and continue on from them. You don't get that as much nowadays, but that's a situation where there's a seed planted when they're younger, and it may go dormant for a while, but when it comes back, it gets watered.
Well,
That's the whole actually mantra of youth ministry, because it can be so heart-wrenching to grow up with these kids for 18 years, and either they move away, they go to college, they move away, and you don't know what's going on with their lives anymore. It's all about planting a tree that you're not planning on sitting in the shade of, because you don't know where that's going to end up. You just have to hope that
right.
that seed that you
You're
planted,
Joanna Appleseed.
Joanna Appleseed.
And I know, Belinda, you and I have had this discussion before about, this really having to take root in our homes. Really that's the necessity of our...
That foundation, that depth has to come.
Right. It has
at
to be
home.
cultivated there. It has to be fertilized there. It has to be, given that...
Initial planting, really.
Well, sure. I think about that. You think about that. Your initial planting, as you grow up, you're brought here to the church for your baptism. Okay, that's your, let's just say for argument's sake, that's your initial.
That's your
you've
jumping
been
off
potted,
point. Yeah.
right? And then over those years, your family really should be the farmers, should be the ones tending it. Shouldn't be, your church. Your church is the one who's going to provide the fertilizer.
I'm not sure that's the...
Sometimes
Maybe
it's the minister.
that's not the
I'm
best
not. And
analogy.
you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, but we could have worked on some better gardening terms had I known you were going there.
So what's a better gardening term?
Some plant food. Something other than fertilizer, which, anyway.
It doesn't have to be stinky.
Those building blocks and the elements for you to continue to grow.
Well, the thing is, especially with youth, like in our house anyway, once they're confirmed, we leave it up to them if they're going to go to church or not. We don't force them. You're going to be, until then though, you're coming on Sunday.
Yeah.
So they're being exposed to the sunlight and the water and the fertilizer.
And they have to make that at some point in time. They have to make the decision
Right.
on their own. Otherwise, you're forcing a relationship that's just going to be more burdensome and cumbersome, and for them to get over, rather than them developing a relationship with Christ as they should.
Right, but we
and their
always
church.
make sure that they know that the door is open. Like, hey, we're going. You want to come?
Right.
Right.
And
Get
there's
up.
always an opening there. And when there's things, especially like with Daniel, he'll come and do stuff here. It's not a
Yeah.
problem.
Oh, yeah.
And
Right.
everything like that.
Right. I mean, that was, that was me when I grew up in, my dad was the pastor of the church, so
So you were in trouble all the time.
I was there at church all the time doing whatever needed to be done. And then when I went away to college, there was this group of folks there that kind of were, trying to really force their own thoughts of God and whatever on me, and it turned me off. And, it really wasn't until, probably my second or third year, well, maybe my first year, where I was, in my new career, where I started going back to church, and started, recultivating that relationship. And, fortunately for me, my buddy Rob was there too. We were roommates, and we were both, faithful men, and we wanted to find this back in our lives, and we were able to jump back on that, to find it on, and I don't want to say our terms, but
It has to be a decision.
It is a little bit of your terms, though.
You have to be open to it.
Situationally,
You have
yeah,
to be
that's the
open
thing.
to it.
And it has, for me, and I know the same thing goes for Sue, it has to be the right message. It has to be
Oh,
the
yeah.
message of the gospel. And if it's not that, then that's
Well, if you get into where it's not so much biblically based or love based, I should say, and it's more of hierarchy of the church,
yeah.
then you're not really going down the right path.
Right. And I know one thing that I certainly steer away from, and I know that Sue despises, is preaching politics from the pulpit.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. I thought you were going to say handling snakes, but
Well,
okay.
that too.
That too.
I've never known her to handle a snake, so
Speaking in tongues, handling snakes in the back of
and that to me, especially right now, that's challenging.
Well, that's
Yeah.
one of those give to Caesar what's Caesar's.
There you go. Exactly correct.
See, call back.
See, he listened.
Sometimes things stick a little bit.
And we just need to act, it's not for us to judge and pull out those weeds.
Absolutely not.
To circle it back around.
Right.
But I think that's especially pertinent because we need to allow to have those conversations. Not not the conversation from the pulpit, but the conversation with everybody to hear that not everyone agrees with what I say or you say or whoever says. We have to be able to have those dialogues that, okay, I hear you, but I'm going to still disagree with you. And I think that's really important.
And I still see you as
A friend,
fellow,
a sibling
image
in
of
Christ.
God. Yeah,
Right.
sibling. Yes, there you go. Sibling in Christ.
See, I got that one right.
You got that one right. Yikes. Yikes.
Anywho, so the next parable is the parable of the mustard seed, which, there are several thoughts and trains about what this really means. But one of the main ones is that the mustard seed is considered one of the smallest seeds that there is, but it can grow to 9 foot tall or something like that. Why Jesus didn't choose like a sequoia or something like that? Probably didn't see
I was
many
going to
of
say, there's
them.
probably not very many sequoias around.
in
the middle of
Palestine.
There's cedars in Lebanon. I've never heard of sequoias in Lebanon.
You
but
can always hope.
Whatever. But yeah, why wouldn't you use the cedar? That would be
True.
an analogy.
So this
that they
is
would have
really,
understood.
for the tininess of that seed to show that the kingdom of heaven grows and it continues to grow and it just spreads out wherever. It's kind of like the mustard weed. If you plant that it's pervasive. It's kind of like bamboo, I guess, where it would, just go everywhere and you can't control it, which
It's
is,
more of a rhizome growth than seed, but I understand
well,
what you're trying to say.
Wow. I'm getting a gardening lesson today.
Anyway,
So,
carry on. Yes, growing bigger.
yeah, I
That's
mean,
actually.
and that,
oh,
go ahead. No.
No, go ahead.
I want to listen to you because I might get in trouble.
No, I was going to say one of the things I had never seen before was the last verse of chapter 13, which was 52. I don't know if that you've already.
I haven't got that far yet.
I know. Okay. We'll wait.
Is that your question?
No, that wasn't my question. My question's earlier than that. But this was one of the things where I was like, oh, I didn't even see that before. But it lends to. So look it up. Look up verse 52, chapter 13. It just lended to the more you know, the more you know. Like it just keeps getting bigger.
Right,
You-
and that's kind of the problem that Jesus finds in Nazareth at the end of chapter 13, where he goes back home, and people are like, "Hey, isn't this the
Not the
carpenter's son?
carpenter's
Isn't this
kid."
Mary's son?
Mhm.
He's
Why do we have to listen to him?
This is irritating that we're listening to him because where does he get all this knowledge?
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
was the end of it.
That-
Anyway.
Yeah, yes. Anyway, back to mustard seed.
So the mustard
Growing
seed,
huge.
yeah, I said that one of the commentaries was written by Ben Witherington, says that, like we said, Jesus could have chosen a genuine tree, and that the mustard seed demonstrates that though the dominion appeared small like a seed during Jesus' ministry, it would grow into something large and firmly rooted, which some find shelter in and others find obnoxious.
I was going to say, some people consider the mustard plant a weed.
Right, so they try
So
to
that
root it out.
Goes to our, we're not supposed to judge.
And that
What's
goes
the
right back to the
weed?
parable of the wheat and the weeds, right?
It's just also cyclical.
It's just all going like
It's all
this.
together.
Everything's a circle.
Everything's a circle.
One thing I will know is I will never talk farming with Belinda again.
I told you, we did VBS on this, I spent a lot of time in chapter 13
I know you
this
did.
past summer, so,
So the next one is the parable of the leaven.
okay, yeah.
So where it talked, I think one of the things that I read was that Jesus really wanted to bring women into the discussion of the kingdom of heaven. So when he talked about the parable of the leaven, it was to put a feminine perspective
Yeah.
on it by being the person who was making the bread or making and where in this parable it's, was it 3 measures, I think?
Yep.
3 measures, which would equate to feeding 100 people. So that's quite a bit of bread. But what it is, again, it's mixing in different things, mixing in, the wheat and the weeds, the different seed, and mixing it in to get growth in the kingdom. I
Yeah,
mean,
the
it's-
one commentary that I read said, with leavening, that it's a slow growth. So even a little bit of leavening in different spots can slowly grow. So you may not grow to full size immediately. It may take years and years and years.
But I mean, I can remember back when I was a kid, and I think you do it with sourdough bread or whatever. But my mom used to have this little blob, and then
Yeah,
you
it
would,
takes forever.
and then you would just, here, you need a piece of this, you need a piece of this, and you'd farm it out around the community.
Oh, the
And then,
Amish bread, that's some good stuff
and
too.
yeah, and it would continue to grow. Right? So I think that's exactly what we're called to do here with the leaven. We come together as a people, as siblings in this world, and we take for each other what it is that each other has, each other's gifts, each other's love, whatever, and you combine it and you sit it and it grows, and it just there it is for everyone to be a part. And that's what the kingdom does. The kingdom grows because of everything and everybody in it.
And leavening won't just do anything all by itself.
Right.
Like just some yeast there on the shelf is just going to be yeast there on the shelf. Or your sourdough starter, you have to feed it every day. A sourdough starter, you have to feed that sucker every day or it's not going to. So I feel like it's also speaking to that too. It's not just, that it's you have to do something with it.
Right. You don't put it in and
You
then
don't
just
just
walk
put it in there
away
and be
and
like,
come back
"Meh."
later.
Yeah, right.
There
It's
has to
something
be
you have
some
to.
tending.
You have to, so it's the same sort of thing. It may seem completely, at first glance, you're like, why do we throw a yeast reference in here? A leavening reference in here in the midst of all of these farming things, and it's not completely different than what the other ones are, really. It's still about tending. It's still about
Being a
growth.
part of it,
It's being,
intertwined, and
it's still all the same.
I mean, yeah, if you think about the sower where the different seed was in different soils and different whatever, and then the weeds are intermingled in the wheat, and then the mustard seed grows. It's all come together where it needs to be with other things. And I think really that's what helps us see the different in the parable of the wheat and the weeds. It helps us to see how we need to be with folks who don't necessarily share what we believe, and that we are offering that, and we're not just casting them aside, that we're welcoming them in. And I think that was, we had 9 new members this past Sunday. We welcomed everybody in. You know, is everybody that was a new member of the same ilk? Do they understand the same things? Do they believe the same things? Probably not.
I was about to say, I don't even think you could say that about the members who are already
Right.
here,
Right.
for sure.
So, I mean, I think that's
But
what we
everybody
do.
brings something different.
Everybody does bring something different, and that's what makes, you know, us as a body of Christ special. You know, because of the difference, because of the ability to have those discussions and have that interaction that allows us to understand that each one has their own gifts and they're to be treasured. You know, therefore, the treasure hidden in the field.
See, now this is the one that I have questions over.
Okay, so what's your question?
Well,
Why don't you read the parable and then we'll question it.
Okay. I use the NIV version just in case you're following along and we don't match up. The kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again, and then in his joy went and sold all he had and bought that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant looking for fine pearls. When he found one of great value, he went away, sold everything he
Oh, that's a
had,
different one.
and bought it.
That's the same idea, though.
Yeah, they're together.
Yeah, kind of they do.
My question really is like still for both of them. And I just don't get this one.
Well, the way I understand it is when you essentially find Christ or you find God, you're so excited that you're all in.
Right.
That you go and you give up everything else and you throw yourself headlong 100% in.
Yes, I get that on the surface, but then it's like, but they're merchants and,
So,
you know, they're buying it to do what with it?
so
I think
what are
you're
they
getting
gonna
in the weeds a little
Yeah,
bit
I'm like-
on that one.
Yeah, I'm just like, this one just, I need the Jesus explains.
so I'm about to do that.
Okay, Jesus. No, I'm just,
So it's where we can see the treasure in the field to be humanity, right? So yeah,
interesting.
and the one purchasing the field is Christ.
Oh.
So what does Christ do for humanity?
Oh, that makes so much. That was
Always
just
back
like,
to Jesus again.
oh, back to Jesus. Okay, yes, he sacrifices everything.
So he gives up his life to redeem
humanity.
humanity.
Okay, this is a Christ parable. Thank goodness, because I was like, I just don't get that I get it now. Yeah, it was like, whew. Man. I should have read different commentaries.
And it's still the same thing kind of for, you know, the parable of the pearl. It's the same concept. It's, you know, if we don't believe enough in the kingdom of heaven, then we're not going to give up everything that we have in order to have that pearl, to have that in our lives. And that's what, you know, the kingdom of heaven is like. It's like a pearl. It's a great treasure.
See, I had it more at the field and humanity. The pearl, I'm still
I
struggling
think
with.
that's how they're two different
Still,
ones.
yeah,
and,
I shouldn't have read them
I
together.
think I was right on the second one, maybe not on the first.
Interesting. See, and that's another new thing. Like, you know, how many times have I read chapter 13 of Matthew? I couldn't even tell you how many times I've heard this. And still, like, you know, sometimes I'll get it and sometimes
Well, part of that is 21st century brain reading, you know, stuff that's a couple years old. You know.
just a couple years old.
Hey, while we're going along, do we have any questions out there?
We don't, although we did have, instead of the fertilizer,
Yeah.
Trisha suggested nutritional fortification as a term.
Oh my goodness.
Rolls right off the tongue.
It does. It's right there. Oh, that was right on the tip of my tongue. Nutritional fortification. Those are the words of the week.
If you don't work that into the sermon this week, I'm going to be disappointed. Just
It's like a
saying.
Where's Waldo. Like, you have to
Dang, now I
listen
got to
to
go
the
back and rewrite my
Thursday.
sermon.
You have to listen to the Thursday, find that little treasure that's going to be in the sermon on Sunday. Anyway,
Right.
whew. Okay, so yeah. If you
good?
have any questions, I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
we're the only ones
Are there any
questioning out there.
questions? And then the last parable found in chapter 13 is the parable of the net, where the net is cast wide. We bring everything in, and again, it's kind of at the end of times, the ones who are non-believers, the one who don't embrace Christ, are going to be taken care of on their own, and we're welcomed into
The wicked,
Yep.
gnashing
And-
and weeping.
And
Yep.
it also kind of puts out that kind of a notice for preachers that you just don't preach to one person. You don't preach to a family. You don't preach to whatever. You preach the
You
word.
cast the net wide.
That's exactly right. And who knows where that net's going to bring, and who knows what it's going to bring.
Ooh, that's
And that's a good thing.
a good thing. And then my little skeptic brain is like, oh, there's some
But we could get-
there's some fish that I'd like to toss aside. I mean, I'm thinking like,
But again, is that your
horrible-
job?
It's not my job, but I also, I have a hard time with
Being accepting of certain behaviors.
being accepting of certain behaviors that would violate most people's moral code of conduct.
Mhm.
Is that was that PC enough to say? You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
Nutritional.
Nutritional
Fortitude?
fortification.
Or fortification. Hold on, I got to write that down.
It's in the comments. You can go back and rewatch the video. Because, you never know what little gems will be in here.
Who knows what might turn up on Sunday?
So yeah, I'm back to understanding this one. It's just that one, the hidden treasure and the pearl in the middle of,
Yeah.
the parable of the weeds again. That an end times thing. The parable of casting the net wide and the separating of the good fish and the bad fish. I'm like, yeah, I get it. But I'm thankful for that whole hidden treasure analogy of humanity and Christ. I appreciate that.
I'm glad that I was
I'm
able
still
to
working
help
on
a
the
little bit.
pearl.
I mean, the pearl, realistically, it's in this as it's read in the Bible. It's kind of like a deal of a lifetime, right? And then if we don't take that leap to partake in that deal of a lifetime, are we worthy of Christ? Are we? That deal of a lifetime is us accepting Christ and embracing Christ and embracing that pearl as that treasure. Christ is our pearl. And, if we don't embrace it, then we've,
I think maybe it's that deal of a lifetime part where it's like a one and done. Like if you've missed your opportunity,
and
missed
I
your
don't want to say
opportunity,
that. I don't
right?
want to say that.
Because that's still kind of like,
Yeah.
I don't like
But
that.
but how many, we talked about
How many
forgiveness.
lifetime opportunities?
We talked about forgiveness being a repetitive cycle. How many times does Christ come into our lives? Christ comes into our lives every day, multiple times during the day. So is he giving us that deal multiple times every day? I think so.
Okay, all right, that sounds better. I'm liking that. It's work. It's
Was that
seeping in.
nutritional
was
fortification for you?
Nutritional fortification. Excellent. So that's the last parable.
That's the last
of chapter
parable,
13.
and then like I said, the last kind of 6 verses of the chapter are about Jesus being in his hometown and being rejected by those, and what good can come of Galilee, really.
Yeah, what's coming out of Galilee?
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's kind of like, not going to say it. But no, and that's where,
Cast your net wide. Don't eliminate a pond.
Don't eliminate.
but that's we will be, I don't want to say abandoned, but we will be, and I can't use nutritional fortification. So,
Well,
we will, and shunned is a bad word, or, you know.
Well,
Discredited, just
d-
taken
well,
for granted.
if you think about, a couple of kids that I knew when I was a kid were knuckleheads.
Yeah.
Probably me too. But anyway, now some of them are very well thought of people who are very accomplished, very smart, and you're like, you used to be
A
really,
knucklehead.
really.
a knucklehead.
Mm. And it's hard to, if you grew up knowing somebody as that's the knucklehead, and now they're not, oh, they're super smart and they're going to save the world. It's really hard to balance those two things.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, look at, and I've said this before, even given how I grew up and who I grew up with in my family, I never in my wildest dreams.
Pastors' kids are the worst.
Yeah. I would have never thought that I would have been here doing this. But I've been fed, and I've had nutritional fortification so that I can
my
move
gosh.
forward in my life.
How many times are we going to say that?
Oh, it's going to be around.
So,
It's trending now.
so I wanted to skip back to 52 because we missed verse 52.
Okay,
so
say
like
ver-
we had all of the parables, but the one like the comparison that I missed, like I don't know how many times before, was verse 52, which is not really its own parable, but I'm going to read it anyway. So, therefore, every teacher of the law who has been instructed about the kingdom of heaven is like the owner of a house who brings out of his storeroom new treasures as well as old, which I was like, seriously, I don't remember ever reading that verse before.
I don't remember that verse in there.
Well, I actually read a commentary about that.
Well,
Did you? Yes.
Then good.
And the way it was explained in that was that you bring out old sort of classic treasures and new treasures, and you mix them together. So it's a mixing.
Kind of like the leaven.
Right. So it's a mixing of the old and the new, and sort of an offering to everyone. There's a little bit of something for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You like old, crusty stuff, great. You like new, shiny things, got a little bit of that for you too.
I read it in that, like, every time the kingdom of heaven is ever growing, kind of like that mustard tree, which is why I wanted to bring it up earlier. It just keeps expanding. There's always a new something to learn about it.
Well, think of the ministry, some of the things that we're trying to do, Belinda, with the youth and with the older folks in the congregation. That's exactly what we want to do. We want to bring that gift of knowledge, that gift of faith, that gift of being
Experience.
Christ in the world, experience, and be able to share that.
Exact way to make soup.
There's that. There is that.
We want to be able to share that, and I think that's important. I think that's what will help us take away from the trend, so to speak, of kids at confirmation, they're done.
Right.
If we have kids here and we have kids doing things, not just the stuff that we don't want to do, then that's important, and that's what's going to empower them and have them with that positivity of Christ in their lives and that positivity that's going to take them out in the world.
It's all about relationship.
Yeah.
And I've used this analogy before, but while I have a whole audience, stacking the stands. You have to stack the stands for the youth in our congregation. It can't just be, so, we have that that seed planted at home with faith, but to have growth in the church, you need to stack the stands. And that is with at least 5 people that is beyond their parent and their pastor.
Or their youth director.
Or their youth director. They need to have 5 substantial relationships with other people in the congregation beyond the people that they interact with the most.
Right.
They need that nutritional fortification
She just...
I just stole your word.
Trending.
Trending, hashtag nutritional
I can't believe how many
fortification.
times that's being said today.
I know, we're going to keep saying it. But I had to work it in. I mean, anyway, but you need 5, so I need, those people to come and have shared experiences at the soup kitchen, on mission trips, things that when they, go to college and come back, they can see a ton of people that they've interacted with.
But but the thing that we need to ensure is that it's not just showing up at the soup kitchen. It's actually having the conversations with kids, having the conversation with the adults. It's
Sometimes
interaction.
soup kitchen is not the best for that one.
True,
there's
but there are other
there are
things that we can
opportunities,
do
yeah.
that, right?
Yeah.
And I think when we do those things and we share our love of Christ in those moments, I think that's important for our kids.
You're not going to get any arguments from me on that one.
Check.
Check. All right, so we are trending now. Trisha added a hashtag to our comments, hashtag nutritional fortification.
I think you have a new title.
It is 10 of 1. So
Oh,
this is
wow.
like the longest, and we've got some faithful followers who have been here like the whole time. But I think we're going to wrap it up. So do you want to let
Yes.
people know what we're doing? We have a plan now.
We do.
people. We
Uh-oh.
have a plan.
We do. Did we say 18 next week?
Yes, we did. He doesn't remember
Plan,
the
we don't
plan.
remember the plan, but there's a
Has
plan.
a plan. He
So
doesn't
next
remember the
week we'll
plan.
be talking about Matthew chapter 18,
Yep.
which is the 4th discourse in the Gospel of Matthew. So
Yep.
we're thankful that you have stayed with us all this time. I didn't realize that we had
We were just
filled with nutritional fortification. So we were like the Energizer Bunny.
Now we're going to get actual nutritional fortification after this.
Indeed, that is true.
Indeed.
We've all missed lunch. I
Thank
hope you
you.
enjoyed
Fortify
your lunch.
yourselves as well.
Thank you
We'll
for
see you on Sunday.
sharing your hour with us. Hashtag
stop.
nutritional fortification. Oh, goodness.